Oh my goodness, we got quite a few people in here tonight. Nice. Awesome. Almost ready. Okay, looks like we are live on Facebook. Welcome everyone. Welcome. So tonight's topic is how to always be happy. And you might be thinking, Tina, that's not possible. I'm going through a really hard time. Like that can't happen. Here's here's how you can actually be happy all the time. Number one is you have to define what actually makes you happy. And we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper. So stick around and we'll go into all these aspects. We're going to talk about frustrations and challenges and how to deal with emotions. And this is what we're going to cover in today's training. And if this is your first time coming to my channel, welcome. My name is Tina. I am a happiness coach and I help people go from being in a dark place where they're feeling depression, anxiety, maybe even suicidal thoughts. I have experienced all of those myself, and I've been able to find ways back through and how to get through to the other side. And what I do, hey Mina, you were asking about my education. I have tons of education, maybe not the kind that you're looking for, but what I do have is real world experience of exactly how I deal with these things on a regular basis. If you're looking for a psychology degree, I am not your coach. So this is personal experience, strength, and hope that I share in order for you guys to be able to take some of the examples of things that I've done myself to actually help me through these challenges. Hey, Saeed, good to see you. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so let's talk about, I'm doing well, thank you. So, how to always be happy. So, first of all, we need to understand what does happiness look like for us? Are we able to define it? And I have some challenges with that because a lot of times we think when we hit certain goals, then we will be happy. When we have certain things in our life, then we will be happy. And oftentimes, what we do is just continue to delay our happiness, and we don't really truly quantify whether or not we're actually happy. And I can promise you that throughout every 24 hours that you have in a particular day, there are moments where you actually do feel happy, even when you're going through really tough times, even when you're going through a lot of depression, even when you're going through a lot of anxiety, there are little pockets of things that you actually find that bring you happiness. And sometimes the problem is isn't whether or not we have those things, is it's where our focus is. And our focus is more on the things that have been removed from our life that we're still hanging on to. And that often is what causes that unhappiness. And so I mean, I know for myself, there's been many times where I have thought, hey, when I finally get this thing and I set that goal and I achieve the goal, and I've been somebody who's always been in high performance, and when I set my mind to something, there's not usually much that stops me. And so I continue to pursue that, and when I do get it, I find the actual act of getting the thing that I thought, it only allows for a fleeting moment of happiness. No different than the little moments that I have during the day that I'm not focusing on. So, for example, one of the things that really makes me happy and that I enjoy is when my cats come up to cuddle with me and they snuggle and they purr and they lay their head on my chest and they bop their head back into my head. And that is something that brings me a lot of happiness. But there are also times where that exact same act, that thing that I love so much, drives me friggin' bananas. And it's usually because I'm trying to do something else, or now's not the right time. Go away, leave me alone, bugger off, that kind of stuff. So the things that we think actually make us happy, oftentimes there are also things that will drive us crazy. There's a dark side to every happiness. There's a light and there's a dark. And so the things that we love can also drive us mental. So understanding that happiness is more a perspective, and understanding that happiness is a perspective shift, and being able to learn how to do that and see the good qualities of everything that you're experiencing is how you can always be happy. And I could probably just leave the talk right there, and then that would be more than enough and let you mull over that. But we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this. And so this also happens with any emotion, right? Um, have you ever experienced emotions, and everybody calls those negative emotions, right? So maybe you feel anxious, maybe you feel shame, maybe you feel anger or rage or any of these so-called negative emotions. And I want to challenge you. Those are labels that other people are using to describe your actions and how it is creating a feeling within them. Your feelings, what's going on with you, is either one of two things. You are either expressing love or you are crying out for love. And it's either love or fear. There's nothing in between. And it's one of those two. So you might try to define it a little bit better. Well, no, I'm really frustrated and I'm pissed off and I'm angry because of these things that have happened, right? And sure, those are circumstances that might be annoying. They might be frustrating. It's really annoying when my cats are trying to jump up when I just wanted to sit my seat back, sit in my comfy chair, and I have my laptop and I was going to get to work. Oh, thank you so much for the friendship necklace, Energy Man. I appreciate you. So it can be really annoying and I can get really frustrated, but that is a fear reaction within me because I just wanted to get some work done and now I have this thing that is delaying me. Now, if I actually look and I see that there are certain things that are happening because, you know, of understanding that this is happening for me. So if I look at it from that perspective, how can that actually be a good thing? Well, anytime I deal with my cats, they usually don't like to stay on me for very long. It doesn't take long for them to get their snuggle meter topped up. So why am I allowing that kind of thing to get frustrating for me? Why am I allowing something that could potentially just be 2, 3 minutes that I could sit back, actually enjoy, and get that snuggle time in? It helps them, helps me, and I get to relax, and then they go away on their own instead of every time I try to push them away because I got my stuff to do. I am focused, and anytime you get in that selfish mode, you're in a fear mode, right? You can't be in a loving mode if you are in that self-centered, self-serving mode, because when you are in a loving mode, you have love within yourself that you are able to share with others, and that brings you happiness. In fact, that is probably the only true thing that will truly bring you happiness is when you are giving love to other people. When you Now, it's great to also receive. There's got to be some receiving energy as well, right? So back and forth, because I know I feel great when I'm able to help somebody else out, and I know I have to allow other people to do that for me. Not always easy, right? Because of my past experiences. Thank you so much for the gifts. I appreciate you guys. So being able to understand these different emotions and seeing some of the benefits. So sometimes it's just the only thing that you need for a miracle is just a slight perspective shift. When you can shift your perspective on how can this benefit me. So let's take the emotion of being stubborn. I've been accused of being stubborn many, many times. Hey, OGD. Um, so welcome from West Africa. So I don't know about you, but I've been told that I've been very stubborn at times. And usually that's by somebody who believes that I'm not doing something that they find valuable. And usually when I get in that stubborn mode is there's a fear response within me, and I understand that. And it is a way to assert boundaries because my natural default setting is to be open, happy, cooperative, connected, loving, gentle. That is my natural state. Now, I can also tap into those darker sides, which isn't a bad thing either, because you can get a lot of stuff done if you are angry and you are stubborn about something. However, you really need to be able to harness those energies because they can become explosive, they can become destructive. And when you are able to channel those and harness them in a proper way, it can actually be a very good thing. No different than fire, right? If fire is contained, it can be very, very useful. If fire is not contained, it can be extremely destructive. Think of a wildfire where it's burning down a forest. But even in that destruction, there can be a lot of good that comes from that, right? Especially for the environment, stuff like that, the soil, trees, all of those kind of things, they regrow. It doesn't mean it's the end, it just means it is now changed. It is now shifted in perspective. And we can choose to focus on holding on to what was there. And if anybody who has lost things because of a forest fire or anything else like that, I'm not trying to minimize any pain that you've gone through because of that. I'm not saying don't acknowledge those kind of things, any challenges that are brought up by anything that is destructive in your life. However, we can move through that if we choose to find what is good about that particular situation. And this is how I have dealt with all of the stuff that I have gone through, even in the sexual abuse, the violence, all of that stuff that I experienced as a child. And I have been able to transmute that and find what has been good about it and what can I choose to make good about it, and therefore reclaim my own power instead of being controlled by those past emotions. I'm now able to shift that perspective, channel it into something that is actually productive for me and useful for me, and I harness that power. Thank you so much, Energy Man. And so being able to tap into that kind of stuff is so powerful, and that is where the true healing actually happens. And this can be done even in, like a work environment, that you can still take a look at any of those um, negative emotions, right? It's like, oh, she's always such a perfectionist. Oh, she's always critical. Or, oh my God, he's always so angry. He's bullheaded. He's like, you can't get, he always wants to do things his way. If you are smart and you are not in a state of fear, you are actually in a loving state. You are in a place of strength, that you are not reactive, that you are expressing and open to whatever is being brought. You can take those raw materials of people that have been labeled with negative emotions. You can shift that perspective and harness it and help them tap into things to be able to, because that same perfectionism, maybe that person needs to be on something that requires a high level attention to detail. Maybe the person that is, bullheaded, always wants to do things their way, you want to throw them on a project that nobody else wants to do so that they can get the benefit, and they are charged up by the challenge of being able to sort things out, right? You can, if somebody's always talking, And they're, doesn't matter what you do, they're always socializing, they're always chit chatting and talking to people and having a fun time. And you're thinking, man, they don't take their work seriously. No, they need to be put in a role where they can actually tap into that ability that they have, because I can promise you that there are people that don't have that natural talent. That is not their default setting. So if that is their default setting, rather than fighting it and being frustrated by it, redirect it, repurpose, and put that energy into a place that is actually more productive, no different than what we have. Now, if we are not able to do that, then we can shift our perspective and look at what is the benefit. Yeah, the eclipse tomorrow, that should be interesting. I remember doing that when I was a kid at school, that we all had to go outside and we had these special glasses. We actually had to make things because I don't think they had, like, you know, the filter glasses that you can get. But we had to make something like with mirrors and a pipe and kind of thing so that we could look at the. Um, I'm not albino, but thanks. I am very pale, but I'm Canadian, so. So anyway, eclipse, all that kind of stuff, good stuff. Might go to the beach tomorrow and check that out. So, flabbergasted. I love your opinion. Thank you so much. I love my porcelain white skin. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing it. So, in going through the different challenges um, and frustrations that you can be dealing with, right? You can take that on, and it's only upsetting to you if you take that on as a negative thing and you are fearful of the judgments that other people put on you. Just like Flabbergasted is trying to point out that I'm albino, which I am not, but that is okay, that he has that opinion. And it doesn't hurt me because that's not something, even if I was, it wouldn't bother me. And I am not sure where do you live? How do you, I'm sure all land has been stolen at one point or another, but thank you for bringing that up. You're really, really helpful. So, frustrations, challenges, going through and dealing with those things and redirecting that energy to be something that is more productive is a way to find how to be happy within yourself, right? And because nobody goes out of their way to do stuff that is aggravating and painful and hurtful to other people, to be a problem to other people, unless they are in a fear state. They are not in a loving state. And if they are in that fear state, they are actually crying out for love. They are so hurting so badly that their only relief is to hurt other people and harm other people and be sarcastic and nasty and derogatory to other people. And so when they do those kind of things, I want you to shift your perspective and to look at somebody who is doing that and actually, instead of fighting them and arguing with them, agree with them and pour more love into them, because they are clearly hurting if they are doing those kind of things. Because I know for myself, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience, the only time that I have ever lashed out and harmed somebody else, I've been sarcastic, I've been nasty. I'm not saying I'm above any of those things, because I can be a fucking bitch when I need to be. And in fact, that's usually why I stay quiet, because I know what kind of damage I am capable of doing. And yes, I do like doing that stuff. And that is why I refrain from doing that, because I know when I get in that state, that is not a good state for me to be in. And there are consequences for behaving in that way. And it ends up harming me in the long run, which is why I do choose not to participate in that kind of activity. Because when I do that, it ultimately harms me, and it reinforces the belief that I should be in a state of fear, that I do not actually deserve love. I do not deserve kindness and compassion and caring emotions. I don't deserve happiness. And I reinforce that belief, which reinforces the fear that I end up feeling and then causes me to act out even more. So, this is why I actively choose not to participate in those kind of behaviors. And trust me, some days it's really fucking hard not to just haul off and throat punch somebody. Okay? Because those are times where you deal with those frustrations and it can be really challenging. And I know every single one of us is capable of holding back that reaction, because all you have to do is be with somebody you actually care about, somebody that you actually love, or maybe somebody that you can, even a friggin' narcissist knows how to turn off those emotions and behave properly if they feel that it will actually benefit them in some way. So don't tell me that you are not capable of holding back your reactions. Now, we're all human and we will make mistakes, and our fears will get the better of us. But at the end of the day, we are all responsible for our own emotions, how we perceive them, what we see as good, what we see as bad about them, and thus we are in full control of our own happiness. Now, what I want you to understand is it is not a bad thing to go through feelings of depression and feelings of sadness and anxiety and grief and pain. It is not bad. It is our perception of those emotions that is the problem, because those emotions have a purpose. They have an actual benefit. They may be darker emotions, but there is a light side to it. There is a good side to those emotions. Example, sadness, grief, sorrow, any of those, that doesn't feel good to feel those emotions. However, um, those those emotions, if you have those emotions, that means you actually cared about somebody, you loved somebody to the depths of your being in order for you to feel those. And the deeper that you actually cared for that person, the greater your pain, your grief, your sorrow, your sadness is going to be. And it's a matter of how we look at that and how we perceive it, and knowing, trying to block those feelings, trying to deny those feelings is an actual problem, because every time that you deny those feelings, you don't allow yourself to feel angry, you don't allow yourself to um, feel sadness or grief or sorrow or anxiety, right? Any of those so-called negative emotions, if you don't allow yourself to feel those and you try to push them down, squish them down, distract yourself from them, don't feel them, and try to just push through. Trust me, I've done this many, many times. I've bought a t-shirt on that one, right? That what ends up happening when you do that is you are suppressing your ability to feel those emotions. And when you suppress one emotion, it suppresses all of them. So if you dull that pain, then you are also dulling your ability to feel happiness and joy. And so doing inner work to be able to tap in to feel those emotions, here's the thing: if you actually feel them to the fullest, they don't last very long. It is only because we are denying it and we are repressing it and we are not expressing how it is that we're feeling that we end up prolonging and staying stuck in that state, in those negative emotions. One, because our perspective is off, that we're seeing it as a bad thing and we're not seeing the good side of it. And when we can tap in and understand the good side of those emotions, then it allows us to feel life at its fullest. And when we can feel life at its fullest, we can feel happiness, joy, passion, love, kindness, caring, all of these wonderful feelings that we are all striving for, that we all want to experience. And the problem is, I think the more it's our happiness that actually scares us more than our depression and our anxiety. That's easier to stay in that state. It is easier to stay in that because if we allow ourselves to fully love and fully feel those feelings of love, we are putting ourselves at risk of being hurt. Because all it takes is for that person, that job, that thing that we want in life, that relationship, whatever it is, children, right? I can't imagine the grief and sorrow that a parent would go through losing their child in any way, shape, or form. Even like, the small gradient. The thing is everybody is going to lose their child because if you've done your job as a parent, they will grow up and go off to live their own lives, which doesn't always include you. So even the joy of being a parent comes with pain because whether now the worst case would be they've passed away before you have, and that is a pain I would never want anybody to experience. But I know there are people that have experienced, and I have a great deal of compassion, and my heart goes out to those people that have experienced something like that. Now, you could also lose being able to have access to your kids, um, through a divorce or a separation, or hell, sometimes you lose your kids because you have to go to work for 8 hours a day and you don't get to work at home, right? You may also experience the pain of you really wanted kids and never got the chance to experience that. And that can be painful as well. So you have this hope, this joy, this dream of being able to have that and it not being able to pan out. And that can be really painful too. Um, there are all kinds of things. So it is our want, our expression of happiness, those things that we desire for happiness, that chasing after them in and of itself is a risk because that, if we either don't get that or we do get it and then it gets taken away from us or we lose it, that can be really, really painful. But what's the alternative? Not to go after anything in life? To just stay numb to all emotions because we're so afraid that if we are happy, that it's going to be stolen from us. And the thing is it will. It will. Our lives are fleeting. All of us are going to die at some point, and we don't know when that is. So being able to find our moments of happiness in each and every day, to be able to tap into the emotions that we feel, even if they're negative, and being grateful for those emotions is really, really powerful because that means we are living the full expression of life. We didn't come here just to kind of go through life as mindless robots, right? I don't know about you, maybe that's what you signed up for, but that's not what I signed up for. I want to feel everything, and that means feeling some really painful shit. Now, if you are able to feel your feelings to the fullest, look at a child, right? They can go from 0 to 100 in the emotional scale in like minutes, right? They can be happy on top of the world, and then you see what is making them happy, and maybe they're going towards an electrical outlet with a fork, and you have to stop them. And now they think their world has ended, that this terrible trauma has happened, and they start screaming and crying, and you're the worst person in the world, right? Because you stopped them from trying to stick a fork in an electrical outlet because you knew that the consequences of that would be even greater than their happiness of that, right? So, but at the same time, we can't protect each other from experiencing the pain of life because it is through that pain that we are able to experience our greater joys. And look at anything that you have been able to accomplish in life. I can promise you that there was a very painful struggle that, but when you got through that struggle and you actually achieved that, are those not the happiest moments of your life? When you actually had to struggle through something and then you actually made it through to the other side, is that not the biggest, most powerful expression of happiness and joy? I know it is for me. Think of a time where you were really, really struggling in life and you were thinking, man, this really sucks and I'm not going to make it through and this is so hard and it's terrible. And there's been times where things got so dark for me that I made an attempt on my life and I tried to end it because I thought that was the only way I could stop the pain that I was feeling. And the thing is, it wasn't the pain that was the problem. It was the feeling of loss of control. That was it because I wanted the thing back so badly. Well, not the thing, it was a person, right? It was my boyfriend when I was 17 years old, and I was devastated that we couldn't be together. And I that was such a hard experience for me to go through. And because I hadn't been taught how to manage those emotions, how to deal with those emotions, and how to shift the perspective so that I can actually move through those. And all I kept getting told, it's like, okay, stop crying, like get over it. It's just a guy. You're only 17. It's not a big deal. You're gonna find somebody else. Like, stop being so dramatic. Blah blah blah. It's like, well, I don't know about you, but 17-year-olds are supposed to be fucking dramatic. They are going through a lot of hormonal changes at that time. And then add in the fact that I was far too young to be living with somebody and to have that taken away, that I was living with him as if he was my husband. And when that gets taken away, that is very fucking painful. Whether we went through an actual marriage ceremony or not, we were living together as if we were husband and wife. And divorce is painful. And that's what it is. So when you break up with somebody that you love, even if it's a friend, losing friends, maybe, you go to high school and then you decide that you're going to different colleges or university, just the loss of that, there is a grieving process that needs to be gone through. And being able to manage those emotions and understand how to navigate that in a way that is productive and in a way that is effective for you is how you move through that at a better pace and without dampening your feelings, without trying to distract yourself from what it is that you're feeling, so that you can move through it and appreciate the good and the bad of both, right? Even the good emotions can be a bad thing, right? It's no different than ice cream is great till you eat too much of it. A glass of wine is great until you drink too much of it, right? So it's not so much, things just are, right? Whether it's our emotions, whether it's your phone, everybody tries to vilify the phone, that you're spending too much time. Social media is a great thing too. It allows you to connect with people from all over the world. I had somebody on here from West Africa, and I'm in Canada. That's amazing. I get to connect with people all over the world. The phones are a great thing. It's not the phone that's a problem. It's how we use it and how it's affecting us and our inability to adjust that and balance it so that it is beneficial to us. That's what the problem is. So it's a shift in our perspective. So no different than I used to laugh that people would complain about violent video games. I am telling you, I spent so much time playing Grand Theft Auto, and I was violent when I played those games. I sometimes, when I would come home, I was frustrated from my job, and I needed to deal with that frustration, and I communicated things articulately. Yeah. I used to come home and I would sometimes just go start a gang war, and I'd stand on top of a building and I'd like block people in, and then I'd throw Molotov cocktails on them just to hear them scream. And I'm like, well, that's pretty fucking dark. But that was something that actually relieved that frustration, that stress, right? So I found other ways to channel that rather than taking that out on the people that I worked with, because I was frustrated because I didn't know how to navigate the emotions and I didn't know how to deal with things effectively. And I didn't know how to shift my perspective at that time. That violent video game actually gave me an outlet so I didn't have to act out those emotions in the workplace. And I didn't have to go postal. Not that I was working in the post office. I was working in transport and logistics. And the thing is there's always frustrations in transport and logistics. Always. There's always loads that are late. There's always loads that you have to rush. There's always having to look at your costs. There's always those kind of things. And if you always look at those as problems, and that it's a negative thing to have those problems, well, then you're not going to have the job that actually pays for your bills and supports your family, which is actually a positive thing. So it's a matter of looking at it from a different perspective. So you think your girlfriend is cheating on you? Any suggestions? What is it that makes you feel like your girlfriend is cheating on you? Because even cheating has two sides to it. And nobody likes to look at that. Everybody just wants to focus on the cheater and they did this and all that kind of stuff. But I can promise you, every couple that I have talked with, that they, okay, there can be a multitude of reasons of why she may not have talked to you in 3 days. And addressing those reasons would probably be more beneficial than assuming that she's cheating. Now, a couple of things that ends up happening. So, if somebody does cheat, it means that they have not been getting what they need out of that relationship. And when we take ownership of that and we focus on what it is that they need in that relationship, one of two things is going to happen. Either we're going to be able to step up and correct those issues, and therefore you're not going to have an issue, or you may see that either you can't, or even when you do make those adjustments, it's still not enough, and then you may have to admit that the connection isn't what it needs to be. And you guys aren't getting out of the situation what it is that you need, or it's run its course. And that can be really, really challenging to accept that. But I strongly believe that people are brought into our lives to teach us things. And when it gets to the point that we are no longer learning from each other, we are no longer helping each other grow, it will become painful to hold on to that relationship. And I know that's not very popular. And I know that can be very, very challenging. But in my personal experience, every time I've tried to hang on to something that I'm supposed to let go of, it's extreme pain. And every time that I don't accept that redirection, it becomes extremely painful. Now, you can hold on and you can have people in your life, you can work together, but both of you have to be willing to work on that. And if that doesn't change, then both of you are being redirected elsewhere. Okay? And that can happen in any relationship. That can be family members, because in order for us to get that next level of growth, we may be directed to go hang out with other friends, and we have to go do something. Maybe we have to move somewhere for a different job because that's the job we were really, really hoping for, and that takes us away from our family. And that can be painful. And that doesn't mean it's taken away forever, because I also believe that if you're meant to come back together, that you will. My grandparents, this is a good story. My grandparents, they were together. My grandmother was married. She had three kids from her first marriage, but her husband had passed away. And what ended up happening is she married somebody else, and he took on her kids. He didn't have his own kids at that time. And so he took her kids on as if they were his. And so that was the only grandfather I ever knew. So my grandfather Murray. And in fact, my brother was named after him, right? Just different spelling. So now my grandparents, they meant everything to me. My grandfather, he was in the Navy when he was younger. He had these like tattoos, and apparently I was his favorite, but he never ever told me that. He just told everybody else, who would come back and tell me I'm his favorite, and I'm like, you guys are crazy. I don't know what you're talking about, because the only time he talks to me or about me is the times that I threw up on him, right? Because I used to get car sick as a kid, and so I threw up. And my grandfather, he had an extremely weak stomach, so it caused him to get sick as well. So that's why he tells that story, because it was a double trauma. Not only did he get thrown up on, but he couldn't control his own vomit reflex. And so those were the stories that he would tell me, but he'd go around telling everybody else of how proud he was, how much he loved me, and all that kind of stuff. But he would never, ever, ever friggin' tell me that. And the thing is my brother was my grandmother's favorite. And apparently, I am very much like my grandmother. She was a very strong woman, very tough woman, no nonsense. But she also had a heart of gold, and she was a great cook. And I am the only one who is able to make her cauliflower casserole the same as she does. And I don't know how I do it. I don't know, maybe I tap into her spirit or something. But I am able to make that, and I can look in the fridge, and I don't have a bunch of random ingredients, and I can throw that together and make a really great meal. So anyway, my grandparents, they ended up getting divorced, and they were divorced for 5 years. And he went off, he married somebody else, had some kids with her, had two kids with that other woman, and Penny and David. And I remember my grandmother during that time, she was pretty angry, pretty bitter. And I don't know all of what happened, of why they, uh, whatever you do, Psychic Lizzie, then don't respond. Just block him if he's inboxing you. Um, if that's something that you want to do, or talk to him, it's up to you. You can choose to have it as entertainment or whatever. Thank you, Energy Man. You are a strong and powerful woman. Thank you. So my grandmother, and I remember during this time, she spent a lot of time with my mom and helping her out, because my mom had young kids and she was a single mom. So my grandmother was around during that time. I remember some of the pieces of wisdom that she shared with me, because I was learning about the Great Depression in school. And I remember asking my grandmother, I'm like, because I knew she was around in the Depression. She was a child then, but still. I remember asking her, I'm like, what was that like going through the Great Depression? And I remember her telling me, you know what? It was challenging times, but there were also a lot of people who made a lot of money during that time. And so the fact that she took something extremely terrible, right? That was a very difficult, dark time for people. And she was able to shift the perspective as to what was good about it. And so if you are one of the people that can shift your perspective, that even through dark times, even when everybody else is only seeing problems, only seeing grief, only seeing sorrow, and you can find what is right about the situation, then you will be a leader in that space. You will be able to help people get through to the lighter side, that to see the opportunities that they maybe aren't seeing because they're so consumed and stuck in their grief and their pain. Being able to shift that perspective and go, yeah, I know that was really bad, but look over here. This thing can actually make a difference. Let's focus on that. And the more you can help people shift that perspective, the more you can help them step into happiness rather than focusing on the pain and the grief and the sorrow and the loss, right? So, not that those things are bad, it means that those people had something and they are going through this process, but they don't know how to move through those emotions. They hadn't experienced those, they hadn't been taught how to move through those emotions and feel them to the fullest. And when you can do that, and go through the inner work that's necessary, that's when you can shift the perspective more quickly. And this is exactly the stuff that I help people through because I've been through that. And there's been times where I've gotten stuck for very long periods of time because I wasn't willing to look in another direction. And when you can do that, that is when you can really change your life and you can find that happiness. So there's a benefit to all the emotions that we feel. So during this dark time that my grandmother was going through where she was divorced, I remember also when I was, I think, 13 or 14, my grandparents actually ended up getting back together. And I remember being at their wedding with my grandfather's two kids that also came to the wedding, Penny and David, that they came. And we got to know them and we accepted them into the family, right? And so understanding that even though you go through these really dark times, there can be a lot of blessings. And my grandfather had that 5 year period where he was redirected because it was his journey to be able to experience being a father where he created those children himself, right? And so that was part of his experience. And he also learned a greater appreciation that he didn't have for my grandmother the first time around. And my God, he loved her. He really, really loved her. And they fought because my grandfather was also an alcoholic, right? So, and there were challenges, and he would sometimes try to prove that he wasn't an alcoholic by making sure that he waited until 11 a.m. before he had a drink. But sometimes he'd be wearing a path in the kitchen floor pacing until he was allowed to have that drink. And he did those kind of things, or he would go on little spurts where he would prove he wouldn't drink, right? And all these different things. And, but I absolutely loved my grandfather. He was a great man, kind man, and really, really, really special to me. And I remember after my grandmother died, um, he lived for about a year, a little over a year after she passed away, because he was so heartbroken that she was gone. She took care of everything for him. And he had to learn a lot of stuff, and he had his meals at the Legion, and he had a maid that would come in and clean for him and take care of him, but he was still sad and very lonely without her. And but during that year, he also got to do things with his kids that he wasn't able to do. So, example, Christmas time, my grandparents always spent time with my grandmother's family, which was us, right? So I love that. And they didn't spend a whole lot of time visiting his kids. Um, and there were always problems and stuff like that that ended up happening. There was a lot of drama on that side of the family. I know his son went to jail and stuff like that. And so there's different paths, and understanding that life is a journey, and there will be times that we will go through periods of loss as we're redirected through a different path. And those are all part of our growth experience. So, in the example of, like, when my grandparents came back together and they were 14 when they got remarried. They were older. I remember having the wedding at the Legion, and it was so fun, and all of the family was there dancing together, having a good time. And it wasn't until I think it was 2002 when my grandmother passed away. Um, yeah, I want to say February or March. It was just after her birthday, and she was an Aquarius, born in February, and yeah, I miss my grandmother. She was a great woman. Um, Tough woman. Oh my God, she was tough. Loved her. She was a nurse, worked in the psych ward, so she saw a lot of challenging things, and she helped people through those emotions, right? She saw people when they were at their absolute worst and down, and being able to tap into that. But my grandparents, when they came back together, I am telling you, my grandfather, although they irritated, they fought a lot too. They fought a lot. And I think that's not always a bad thing, right? Because they had a lot of passion too. I won't get into that. But when you hear what's going on the other side of the wall, you're like, oh, but hey, I hope to be in my 70s and 80s and very active in that particular way. And they were active, and he loved her a lot. And, but after she passed, he had that time that he got to spend that additional time with his kids and to give them that experience before he passed away. Um, he died of a stroke, and he just in the bathroom passed away on the floor. So you never know. And he seemed fine. He was in good spirits. But it was the cleaning lady that came in that morning to clean and found him. So, you know, life is precious, and there are moments of happiness that we can find. And I know in that time that I went to go visit, because in 2002 I got married and I went to go visit my grandfather, and I brought my new husband with me to visit him. And it tore his heart out, and that was the last time that I saw him. But I think it was because I was so much like my grandmother, and me being there just brought up that pain, and he had to relive that of being reminded that she was gone, and it broke my heart to see him like that, because he was always so fun. He was just always full of piss and vinegar, and just finding little ways to annoy her. He would find little ways just to annoy her, and she'd get all mad about stuff, and he delighted in that kind of stuff, right? But he also would. Um, I remember this one time. He was so protective of her too. My grandfather is a very gentle man. But you also didn't fuck with him either, too, because here's what happened. So there was this friend, and I remember we had gone out. I was down visiting my grandparents. We had gone out. I don't know if we were at bingo or groceries or something like that. And we come back home and the kitchen table is trashed. It's like broken. It's like it's broken and we're like and my grandfather's all beat up and everything. And I because I was a kid, I don't have all the details, but here's what I did find out is apparently one of his drinking buddies had come over and said something very disrespectful about my grandmother. And my grandfather, who is the calmest, most gentle man that ever lived, and he lost his shit and beat the hell out of this guy because he disrespected my grandmother. And I was like, now that is a man. Because he protected her and he loved her a great deal. That's what I remember. They weren't perfect by any stretch of the imagination at all. Um, but they were lovely people and I miss them greatly. So, guys, and you can be in a place of sadness of that or and when they first get taken away from you because everybody will get taken away from you in your life whether you're the one that gets taken away first or other people are the one that get taken away from you, we are going to lose each other in this life. That doesn't mean we shouldn't build connections. That doesn't mean we shouldn't take the chance and love. We have to love with all our heart and know that sometimes those experiences will end and that will be painful in the beginning. But it's the joy and the love and the depth of the emotions that you feel with the person that you love for however long that you're with them. And fully embrace that and appreciate it. Yes, it's going to fucking hurt like hell when you lose them. But the more that it hurt is the strength of the love that you felt. And when you can shift your perspective of really appreciating the love that you felt to the depth that you felt it while you're with them and appreciate that to the fullest, that is where the joy of life comes from. That is where your true happiness comes from. And you can look at anybody that's going through anything right now. And they could have the best thing, they could have the best marriage, they could have something that ends up either tearing them apart, one of them passes away, one of them gets sick, something like that. Life is short, guys. Life is fleeting. And our ability to love people, no matter who they are when they come into our lives, friend, coworker, whoever that is, family member, love people with all of your heart. And know that yes, they will be removed and yes, it's going to suck. But to go through life not having felt that love is worse. So tapping into that, embracing it, and if there's things that you're avoiding that you are not doing to feel that full expression of your love and being able to tap into that, let go of the fear. Because it's not the fear of being alone that we have, it's the fear of loving people to our fullest capacity. Because if we do that, we might get hurt. Don't let that fear hold you back from the power of love. Because that is what makes life worth living. And it doesn't matter if you're young. You could be young and you find the love of your life. You could be old and find the love of your life. Anywhere in between. Just because you're young doesn't mean you're going to have 30, 40, 50 years together. It doesn't. It's not promised. And far too often we expect that we are going to have all this time. and it's not. So being able to appreciate things to the fullest ability and not let anything hold us back is how we live our fullest life. And sometimes one of the most painful things that you can do is to be able to let somebody go that you know that you're not meant to hold on to. That's a whole other level of love, because you have to break your own heart in order for them to have what it is that they need. And you know when you're supposed to do that. So love is really challenging. It is really challenging. It's not for the weak. You have to be really, really strong, because you don't know how long you're going to have that person around. But I can promise you it's worth it, loving everybody that you come in contact with in your life. Even if it's an acquaintance, pour love into them. Even if it's a cashier or a waitress that you happen to interact with, pour love into them. You can only do that if you shift yourself out of the state of fear, which is not real to begin with, and you shift yourself into a state of love, and you pour that positive energy from yourself into them. And if you're having trouble tapping into that positive energy, you have an unlimited resource. If you open yourself up to a power greater than yourself, most people, they'll either call him God, Allah, whatever, even if you're on the logic side, okay? Because I was more science, logic-based, understood the concept of God, didn't fully believe, wasn't something that I tapped into myself. But when you open yourself up to the loving power of God, and you allow that and you develop a personal relationship with God, you are tapping into an unlimited resource of love. And all you have to do is open yourself up to it. When you open yourself up to it, you fill your own cup, and then you can share that with others. But if you are fearful and you believe in the illusions of this world, false evidence appearing real, that's what fear stands for. When you do that, you block yourself off from the experience of love. And we are all guilty of this. Sometimes those illusions are really fucking powerful, and we start acting out on those, and we don't act our best self. And we know it. You can lie, you can deny it, you can say, oh, well, they did this to me first, and that's why I had to do this, and all that other kind of stuff. But I can promise you, when you are in a state of love, when you are in and operating from your best self, I promise you, you have no desire to hurt others, right? You will have no desire to hurt others. It's only when you are in a state of fear, when you are crying out for love yourself, that's when you will harm others. And if all of us learn to do that inner work, I can promise you there will be no wars, there will be no fighting, there will only be collaboration, there will be us lifting each other up. And that doesn't mean that there won't be any competition. We're not going to all sit around singing Kumbaya. No, we will still work together, and we will challenge each other. We will grow. We will be our best selves. Can you imagine what the human race could accomplish if we all did this inner work? If we all tapped into that loving side of ourselves, if we all were no longer in a state of fear, afraid to let go, afraid to love, afraid to step into who we could possibly be. And we believe this nonsense that we're supposed to be these angry, hurt people and lash out at others. And, we think that that gives us strength. It doesn't. True strength comes from love. It's the only weapon I have. If you hurt me, I'm going to love you harder until you stop hurting me. And people say, "Oh, Tina, that's like, self-destructive." No, fuck you. I will love you harder. This is what Jesus talks about when he says, if somebody slaps you in the face, turn the other cheek and let them slap the other one. It's not because you're weak. That takes strength because they're in so much pain that they think that that's the only solution is to lash out at you. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And the only times I've hurt people and I've deliberately hurt people where I've lashed out is because I was in a state of fear. And I can promise you every time I've ever done that, I felt regret. And then when you feel regret, you feel guilt. And when you feel guilt, you seek to be punished. And you end up in this state of unhappiness, depression, anxiety, all of those kind of things. But when we pour love into ourselves, because when we get to those states and your problems have brought you to prayer, they bring you to your friggin' knees where you have no choice but to fucking call out to God for help, even if you don't believe. Because I promise you, if you are suffering, you might want to try it. Just ask God for help. I double dog dare you to try that kind of thing and see what happens, right? Oh, thank you so much, Energy Man. I appreciate all the coins, all the gifts that you've given tonight, and for interacting in the live. I really do appreciate it. So, this kind of stuff, guys, your frustrations, your challenges, they're blessings in disguise, right? If we choose to look at them. And it's not easy. It is not easy. But if you need help with that, that is what my coaching program is going to be, is to help people through those change transitions when you're stuck in those difficult emotions and you can't quite get yourself to happiness. You can't see the love. You only see the fear. You only see the pain, right? If you are stuck in that place, I want you to reach out to me. I will be launching my coaching program. Thanks, Energy Man. I will be launching my coaching program. I do have my target, which is going to be April 17th, so 10 days from now. I will be launching access to that, and I'll be telling you all the details. I'm still putting everything together. There will be beta pricing, so this is a great time. If you do want in on that program, let me know. Send me a direct message on whatever social media platform you're watching me on, whether that's Facebook, TikTok. Send me your email address, and then I will send you information on when that program is going to be available, because I'm also probably going to limit it because it is beta testing. My problem isn't that I don't know the information, is I know it so well and it's so automatic. It'll take me a little bit to kind of distill this in a way that I can transfer this information, these tools, this knowledge to you so that you can use this. And that's why I've been doing some of the live stuff so that I can kind of tap into this and explain this. But if I'm able to help you through this and work with you more directly, where you can ask me questions and not just listen to me talk, because I'm a much better listener than I am a speaker. Okay? My superpower is being able to sit and listen and be able to hold space for you, to help you through that. You will gain so much more out of working with me one-on-one than just listening to me talk at you. Okay? So, guys, and I clearly, apparently, I can talk too. So imagine if I can actually hold space for you and listen, and I'm better at that than I am talking. And I've been rambling on here for an hour and 10 minutes. So, but part of that is because there's been a whole lot more interaction, and that allows me to feel like I have a connection with you guys, and that there's some energy here being exchanged, and that is that's something that I don't take lightly, even if we never meet. Um, those energy connections, some of the best people that I know are people that I've never met, and we've only connected online. And I'm extremely grateful for the people that I've met. And I would love to be able to meet you guys in person. I know as I build out this program, there will probably be like a retreat that where we can connect and get together. I've put on events before, been part of like big events. I've spoken in front of like crowds of 600 and stuff like that. That's something that I have done back in my 20s. So a couple of years ago. And being able to connect with everybody and share that energy up close and personal would be really, really powerful, right? So, guys, with that, if this is your first time joining my channel, make sure that you go over to my YouTube channel, which is Coach Tina B 125, and please subscribe. It helps boost that up. It also will give you notification when I have uploaded these live trainings. So if you kind of jumped in halfway, you still want to listen, you want to kind of go back over what the topic was, and extract some of the golden nuggets. Maybe you do not have the funds to be able to work with me directly in my coaching program. You can still get value. I will be continuing to come on here every night and be able to give value to people that maybe are not able to access it, because my goal is to be able to help 1 million people heal past trauma and help people step into their happiest version of themselves so that they can because when you're in that state of love, and we have more people in that state of love, and I can get these tools and these resources to you, and you can operate as your best self, then that is going to have a very powerful impact on the world, right? I can't do this alone, and I need your help, and I want to do that by helping you first. So, guys, with that, I am going to wrap up tonight, and check out my YouTube, Coach Tina B 125, and I look forward to being able to launch my new program. So another way you can help is invite people, let them know that I'm doing this live every day, probably around 10 p.m. Eastern time, around that. I'm still working on being better at my time management. And I know it's been lax because reasons. If I try to explain any of those reasons, they're just going to come off excuses. It just really hasn't been a priority for me. When I get to a place where I'm now doing my coaching program and I'm helping more people, I will have to structure my time a little bit better. And when you are more structured with your time, then I can promise you I will show up and be on time with certain things. And so it will become more important for me. So guys, with that, I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope you found this valuable, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care, guys. Have a great night. Bye.